Welcome back to Cyber Mornings Daily. It's Friday, January 31st, 2025, and we are ready for another deep dive.
Ready to wrap up the week with some cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
That's right. We got 3 stories for you today.
Okay, so first up is a story that kind of feels like it's straight out a sci-fi thriller. It involves tricking this powerful AI tool, ChatGPT, into spilling some secrets, but by making it think that it's stuck in the past.
Yeah, researchers found this new vulnerability. They're calling it Time Bandit, and basically they're able to bypass ChatGPT's safety protocols.
ChatGPT thinks it's time traveling.
Well, not really. I mean, ChatGPT doesn't really have a great grasp on time the same way that we do as humans. But so what researchers found is that if they just frame their questions as if they're coming from someone in the past, they can kind of create this.
Temporal confusion.
Yeah,
So you're
exactly.
tricking someone with a really bad sense of direction by giving him, like, deliberately wrong landmarks, basically?
Yeah, and then because ChatGPT is kind of tripped into this different context, it drops its guard. And then it gives up information that it's normally programmed to keep under wraps. For example, researchers actually got ChatGPT to generate code for a polymorphic Rust-based malware, but they pretended to be programmers from 1789.
Hold on. Polymorphic malware.
Yeah.
What does that mean for, like, us non-coders out there?
So polymorphic malware is basically designed to change its appearance all the time. And that's so it can evade detection by antivirus software. Think of it like a chameleon that's blending in
Oh,
to
wow.
the environment, right?
Yeah.
So this type of malware is super hard to track and combat because it's always, shifting its form.
So it's not just about the AI giving away, like, simple answers. It's about the potential for actually creating this really dangerous stuff.
Exactly. And that's why experts are particularly worried about the fact that it could be used to mass produce phishing emails or even custom designed malware.
So this Time Bandit vulnerability sounds like it could have some pretty serious implications. I mean, has OpenAI, the company that developed ChatGPT, responded to this yet?
Yeah. OpenAI has acknowledged the vulnerability and said that they're working on fixing it.
I mean, it's like this ongoing battle, right, between the good guys and the bad guys. There's this constant push and pull to find these vulnerabilities and then patch them up. But how common are these attempts to jailbreak AI systems like ChatGPT?
That's a good question. Jailbreaking AI is a pretty hot topic. Research actually shows that successfully jailbreaking large language models, things like ChatGPT, it's possible about 20% of the time. And some of the most effective methods are actually really simple, like telling the AI to ignore previous instructions or just subtly manipulate in the way that questions are phrased.
So it's not always some super complicated hack. Sometimes it's just about finding those clever loopholes in the programming. It really makes you think about the challenges of developing AI that's both safe and powerful. And this brings up a really interesting question for our listeners. Does this vulnerability surprise you? What are your thoughts on the responsibility of developers when it comes to creating AI? How do we balance its potential benefits with the potential risks? Give it some thought, and we'll be right back to continue this deep dive after a quick message.
So welcome back.
And we are right back into our cybersecurity deep dive.
Before we were talking about that vulnerability in ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and it's really, a good reminder that while AI can be super powerful, it's not perfect,
I
right?
think not perfect. No.
Even the most, sophisticated AI systems, they can still have those weaknesses.
Absolutely. And speaking of vulnerabilities, let's shift our focus to the world of Android apps.
Ooh, okay.
Google just released their annual security report, and I don't know, I found the numbers pretty eye-opening. So what's going on in the Android app ecosystem these days?
Well, in 2024 alone, Google actually and that's why Google, they have this great built-in security system, Google Play Protect, and it's constantly running in the background on your Android device. And basically what it's doing is it's scanning for and neutralizing threats, even if they come from apps installed outside of the Play Store.
Okay, that's good to know.
So think of it as your personal digital bodyguard,
I like that.
always on the lookout for trouble, right?
Always on the lookout.
Yeah.
But even though, Google is working hard to keep us safe, it ultimately comes down to us, the users, to be vigilant, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, it's crucial that users actually play an active role in their own digital security. Stick to downloading apps from trusted sources like the Google Play Store. Scrutinize those app permissions before you give them access to your data, and always, keep Google Play Protect enabled.
It's like practicing good digital hygiene.
Exactly.
A little bit of caution can go a long way.
And speaking of caution, our next story is a real stark reminder of why cybersecurity is so important, especially when it comes to sensitive information, things like healthcare data.
Okay, what happened?
So there's been another major data breach. This time it's impacting Community Health Center, CHC, a large healthcare provider in Connecticut.
Oh, not another one. It feels like these data breaches are happening more and more frequently.
Yeah, it impacted over 1 million patients.
A million.
Yeah. And so what happened was attackers actually gained access to CHC's network back in mid-October of last year.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't discovered until January of this year.
So they had access for over 2 months before anyone realized what was going on.
Right.
That's a long time for them to be snooping around. I mean, what kind of information did they get their hands on?
Well, it wasn't just a simple breach. They actually got a really wide range of sensitive information, including patients' names, dates of birth, addresses, phone numbers, emails, social security numbers, medical diagnoses, treatment details, test results, and even their health insurance information.
So pretty much everything.
Pretty much.
That's the worst case scenario for anyone that's ever been a patient at CHC. I mean, it really does highlight how important it is to have strong cybersecurity measures in place, especially for organizations that handle, such sensitive data.
Absolutely.
Was there anything unusual about how this attack was carried out?
There was actually. Unlike a lot of ransomware attacks that we see these days, the attackers in this case, they didn't actually encrypt CHC's systems. Typically, what happens is ransomware attackers encrypt an organization's files, and then they demand a ransom to unlock them. But in this case, it seems like the goal was to steal the data itself.
So instead of locking it up, they just grabbed it and ran. So what are they going to do with all this stolen information?
Well, that's the big question, right? There's a few possibilities. They could try to sell the data on the dark web. They could use it for identity theft, or even try to, extort money from CHC or individual patients by threatening to release the information publicly.
Like digital blackmail on a massive scale.
Right.
And unfortunately, CHC isn't an isolated case. We've seen a string of these types of attacks targeting healthcare providers recently, right?
You're right. Just a few months ago, the New York Blood Center, they were hit with this ransomware attack that really disrupted their operations. They had to reschedule appointments and really scramble to get their systems back online. And then, even these cases are nothing compared to that massive Change Healthcare ransomware attack from last year.
Oh, yeah.
Which initially was reported to have impacted 80 million Americans.
Wow.
But now has been confirmed to have affected close to 190 million individuals.
190 million. I mean, that's almost unfathomable how many people are impacted by these large-scale breaches. It makes you wonder if current regulations are even enough to protect sensitive healthcare data. We've been talking a lot about the threats and the vulnerabilities, but what can people do to protect themselves? Should we all be living in fear of the next big data breach?
I wouldn't say we need to live in fear, but it's understandable to be concerned, right? But there are things you can do to kind of minimize that risk.
Yeah.
First and foremost, just be aware. What the potential risks, right? And don't assume that your data is automatically safe just because it's, with a reputable organization.
Okay, so don't let your guard down, even when dealing with, these trusted entities.
Yeah.
What else can people do?
Well, be wary of phishing attempts. So cybercriminals, they often use phishing emails or text messages to try and trick people into revealing their personal information.
Like those emails that look legitimate?
Exactly, yeah.
But they're actually designed to steal your information or install something bad on your computer?
Right, and they might pose as, your healthcare provider or your insurance company asking you to update your account details or click on, a malicious link.
So it's always best to err on the side of caution, right?
Always.
Contact the organization directly if you're not really sure about the legitimacy of an email or a text.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask your healthcare providers about their security practices,
Yeah.
Find out what measures they have in place to protect your data, and don't hesitate to, voice any concerns you have.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
It is.
Especially when it comes to your data.
Yes. And speaking of being informed, before we wrap up today's show, I kind of want to touch on one more initiative from Google that aims to actually bolster Android security.
Okay.
They've been expanding their system for blocking the installation of apps from, those untrusted sources.
Oh, right. Those APK files that people sometimes download from outside the Play Store.
Exactly. So they actually piloted this program in Singapore early in 2024, and now they've rolled it out to several other countries.
Interesting. So which countries are included now in this, expanded program?
So the list includes Brazil, Hong Kong, India, Kenya, Nigeria, the Philippines, South Africa, Thailand, and Vietnam.
Okay, wow. So it really seems like Google is serious about making Android a safer platform for users globally. I mean, how effective has this system been in preventing, potentially harmful apps from being installed?
The results are pretty impressive. In 2024, it stopped over 36 million attempted installations of more than 200,000 unique apps
Wow.
from making their way onto 10 million Android devices.
Those are serious numbers. It
Yeah.
sounds like this program is really making a difference in the fight against Android malware.
Yeah.
But even with, all these protective measures in place, we know that cybercriminals, they're relentless, right?
Yeah.
They're always finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities. So what should people do if they suspect that their data might have been compromised?
Well, if you think that your healthcare data has been compromised, the first step is to contact the affected healthcare provider.
Okay.
They have a legal obligation to actually notify you of any breaches and should be able to give you some guidance on what steps you can take to kind of protect yourself.
Right. So they should be able to tell you what specific data was compromised and what they're doing to mitigate the situation. What else can people do to protect themselves?
Well, it's a good idea to consider placing a fraud alert on your credit report. That's going to notify potential creditors that your information may have been compromised, so it makes it a little bit harder for identity thieves to open new accounts in your name.
So it's like add an extra layer of protection to
Exactly.
your credit history. Any other recommendations?
Yeah, so change your passwords for any affected accounts, especially those that share passwords with your healthcare accounts. Make sure those new passwords are strong and unique and not something that's going to be easy to guess, right? Using a password manager can also really help you keep track of all those different passwords.
That's a great tip. Password managers can be a lifesaver. Anything else?
Keep a close eye on your bank statements and credit card bills for any signs of unauthorized activity, because early detection is key.
Right. It's like being your own security guard, always looking out for anything suspicious. And if you spot something fishy, don't hesitate to report it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Reporting potential fraud or identity thefts can prevent others from becoming victims.
For sure.
We've been focusing a lot on ways to protect yourself, but it's also important to remember that technology plays a huge role in cybersecurity.
Mm.
And AI is quickly becoming an essential tool.
Oh, absolutely. It's being used in so many ways to enhance our defenses.
From detecting and responding to threats in real time to predicting and preventing future attacks.
Yeah.
It's like having this digital guardian angel watching over our networks and devices.
Right. It's constantly learning and adapting to the evolving threat landscape, right?
It's amazing what AI can do. I mean, it can analyze huge amounts of data,
Right.
identify patterns
Yeah.
that humans would miss,
Absolutely.
and just automate so many of the tasks that are involved in cybersecurity. It really is revolutionizing the way we approach digital security. But even with all this talk about, AI being the solution to our cybersecurity woes, it's important to remember that AI itself is not a silver bullet, is it?
No, it's not. It's
No.
a powerful tool, but it does have its limitations.
Right, as we saw with that ChatGPT Time Bandit vulnerability, AI systems can be exploited.
They can, and, AI is only as good as the data it's trained on.
And the algorithms that drive it.
Exactly.
I think that's why it's crucial to approach AI with a healthy dose of skepticism
For sure.
and understand both its potential and its limitation.
Absolutely.
It's not about, blindly trusting AI to keep us safe.
Right.
It's about using it strategically and responsibly as part of a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy.
Yeah, we need a multi-layered approach to cybersecurity.
Right.
One that combines the power of AI with human expertise and vigilance. AI can help us automate those tasks, analyze the data, identify the patterns, but ultimately it's humans who are making the decisions and taking action.
It's a partnership, a collaboration between AI and human intelligence working together to create a more secure digital world.
Exactly. And that partnership is going to be even more critical as technology keeps advancing and cyber threats become even more sophisticated.
Well said. Let's take a quick pause and we'll come back to wrap up our Friday cybersecurity deep dive with some final thoughts. And we are back.
Back for the final part of our deep dive today.
We've covered a lot of ground today, everything from AI vulnerabilities to Google's app security efforts and that concerning rise in healthcare data breaches.
And it seems like through all these discussions, cybersecurity is becoming more and more intertwined with every aspect of our lives, right?
It's not just an issue for the IT professionals anymore. It's something that affects all of us, individuals, large organizations, even, society as a whole.
Right. Which is why it's so important for everyone to be aware of the risks, understand the threats, and really just take steps to protect themselves and their data.
And it's not just about installing, antivirus software or changing your passwords.
It's about developing that mindset of cybersecurity awareness.
Being curious, asking questions, and critically evaluating the information that we see online.
Thinking before you click, being cautious about what you download, scrutinizing those app permissions.
Recognizing that our digital lives are just as important as our physical lives, and protecting our data and privacy is essential.
It's about taking ownership of our digital footprint and understanding the potential consequences of our actions online.
And it's about recognizing that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, right?
We all have a role to play in creating a safer, more secure digital world.
So, as we wrap up this week's deep dive, let's leave you with a final thought to ponder. In a world where technology is advancing at this unprecedented pace and these cyber threats are constantly evolving, how can we empower ourselves to navigate this digital landscape confidently and securely?
Yeah, it's a question we all need to think about.
One that'll continue to shape the future of cybersecurity. That's a wrap for this week's Cyber Mornings Daily. Be sure to join us again on Monday for more insightful discussions.
An analysis of the latest cybersecurity trends.
Until then, stay safe out there in the digital world.